Hi everybody. If you're watching this on my channel, this is the fast version of a session we live stream on Thursdays at 10:30 a.m. on Art Joy Sharing channel. So I take my portion and I speed it up and I give you the fast version. If you want to see the thing in its full entire hour and a half long video, where both Chelsea and I work on these projects, then please go over and check out Art Joy Sharing. Subscribe, like, all that good stuff. But today we're talking about embossing, and we all have these products that we've had out for a long time. And I was going to show several different techniques using embossing powders. First up is making some faux encaustic powder. I had taken some clear embossing powder and used some alcohol ink to colorize it so that it looks more like beeswax, and just mix it up in a container, and you can make your own shaded embossing powder by doing this. Now, if you want it to look like beeswax, you need to coat it with a matte medium, and so that's what I did. The encaustic is not shiny and glossy like embossing powder, so the way you knock that back is just adding a layer of something that dulls it down. So now I've got this board that I've put some texture paste onto, and I'm going to use some glycerin as something that's sticky to put my embossing powder down on my board with. And if it gets a little bit too much, I can mop it up, but this is another color of clear powder that I've mixed with some alcohol ink to shade it. And I'm going to use that to create this glossy river effect going down my board. I also have some embossing powders that have several different textures to them. There are different grinds to embossing powder, from the very fine to the very thick. Ultra thick embossing powder, ETEP, is something that's been out for a long time. And, you can combine and make your own mixes of embossing powder. One of the people in the audience had asked about using pearl powders with it. Yes, you can use pearl powders with it. You can use pearlized embossing powders, all kinds of things. So here I'm just using that mixture over the top of some pearl powder mix, and you can see what it does on the surface. So now I'm using a Versamark pad, and I'm just hitting some of those surfaces with that to make it sticky. And I'm going to use another color of embossing powder, put it on there. I'm going to rub some off, because what I like to see is the layering underneath. I put all that color down there. I don't want to cover it all up. I want to be able to see some of that through. And to me, the beauty of some of these mixed media things is being able to see the layer after layer that goes on. Now, I try to give you guys a lot of tips in these hour-and-a-half sessions. Now I'm talking about chipboard embellishments. I've got these old pieces of chipboard, and I'm just gluing some paper down onto the top of the chipboard. And you want to make sure that your paper is sealed, so I'm using some matte medium over the top, because if you don't seal your paper when you're putting embossing powder over it and heating it, many papers are so porous that the embossing powder sinks right into the paper and kind of distorts the image on the paper. So you want to make sure that you seal the paper prior to putting the embossing powder down. So I've got these butterflies and these chipboard things, and I'm just, putting a little bit of brown ink around the edge to antique them a bit, doing the same thing on the tag. And then I'm going to go back to, oh, wait a minute, I've got another embellishment here I seem to need to show you. So these are bevel pieces, spare parts. I think I got them in the discount aisle at Hobby Lobby or something. And I'm just punching some paper to fit into the bevel, and then I will coat that bevel with my matte medium and make sure that my paper is not going to just soak up all of that embossing powder and have the image disappear. And then I've got my shaded embossing powder. I'm going to get these forceps. These you can get at um, like a Tractor Supply or Tyson's or something like that, where they have animal care and, you know, surgical supply, whatever. But they're not very expensive, and they clip together, so it holds your piece quite well if it's hot. And remember, these metal pieces do get hot as you're doing that. But, you know, rather than using a resin or something like that that you have to wait to dry, embossing powder is a really good alternative. So there I go again, dipping into that tinted embossing powder, and I'm just going to, you know, emboss these embellishment pieces that I can use in my art. So let's go back to that tag that I did the faux encaustic on. And I'm just going to use some of these embellishments that I created to create a tag. And we'll just, you know, continue to work with the stuff we've got out on our desk. But one of the things I want to tell you about, this is just a tile, ceramic tile from the hardware store. I think they go for, you know, maybe $1 or $2. I get the cheap ones. And it's a good surface to work on if you're looking for something that's going to be heat resistant. And it's not very costly. You know, I've seen all kinds of things that have come out. I know that there are going to be some things coming out at CHA. I know that last year Tim Holtz came out with a glass mat. Well, I have glass mats. I have cutting mats. I have all kinds of things. I don't need another mat. But I did want to show you my tile because I use this a lot of times when I'm doing heat things, even when I'm torching things, you know, because they're ceramic. They've been in a hot kiln and they've been fired, so they'll stand up to that kind of thing. So there's my butterfly. Here's my little circular piece, and I'm going to hit it with the Versamark and some embossing powder. And of course, I have to heat set the embossing powder. A lot of heating on this show. So I'm just dropping that in a spoon so I don't burn my fingers. And heat setting that embossing powder. So I hope this gives you some ideas. If you have some ideas about embossing and things you want to share over on Art Joy Sharing Facebook page, please come and join us. You know, I'd like to see what you're doing. So I continue on. You know, it's an hour and a half show, and I'm not going to get done with this particular piece in an hour and a half because, you know, it's layer after layer after layer. But I wanted to show you the effects of some of these different embossing powders, you know, what they look like on the surface. This one has some pearl added to it, and one of the things that people in the audience had talked about was pearls, and that bright blue section in the middle, what remember was that pearl powder. So this is a pearl embossing powder that I'm adding, and it's got a tint of lilac color in it, and so that goes really nicely over the top of that pinky purple that's in the background of this piece. So now I'm going to get out another type of embossing powder. This has both pearlized and multiple size and glitter embossing powder, and I'm showing how to heat from the backside. We talked about different heating tools. You know, I at some point had gotten an electric fry pan, you know, the kind you pick up at the secondhand store, and I just put tins in the bottom and a craft sheet, and you can heat it up to about 300, and you know, you can melt your embossing powder in there. So if you don't want to do this with a heat tool, just, you know, get a fry pan out. There might even be stuff in your cupboard that you're not using. You know, this is how I do my cooking. Uh, so I'm just embossing some embellishments now. I'm using a couple of different kinds of powder just to show how you can combine them. And I'm going to heat set those and cut them out. And we'll put some color on a tag and make a little Valentine tag to attach to a Valentine gift, right? So anyway, now that I've got that uh, out on the table, I'm thinking about other things that I want to share with you. You know, the cool thing about embossing powder is it's raised up off of the surface. So when you're using crayons and things like that, you know, you're not getting that line on the cardstock that you would if you just scribbled on a cardstock, because you can scribble on top of the embossing powder and then use your finger to move it off of the embossing powder onto the surface. So that's kind of a cool effect, and I'll demonstrate it here. So I've got these Marabou crayons, and I'm just pulling out a few colors, trying to figure out what I want to use. I like the turquoisey blue with that purple. I think that's a nice combination. I pulled out a green, but I changed my mind. I decided I wanted to brighten it up more than that. And when you mix a yellow with a blue, you're going to get green anyway. So, you know, I got blue on my finger. I'm getting the green tone. So I'm going to use a baby wipe and clean that Marabou off of the embossed surface because I want to see the beautiful purple embossing. And then I'm going to add it to the little hearts that I cut out and just, you know, use my finger to move it around. And you got some cute little embossed embellishments to go on your tag. And I'll use some double stick tape to pop those up. But, you know, these are just real simple techniques using embossing powder. And here's the other tag that I did the faux encaustic on. I'm going to just use some embellishments on here. I've got a die cut piece of chipboard and gonna use a little bit of brown on the edging of that to, you know, antique it a bit. And I'll glue that down using some glossy accents. I'm just showing you different chipboard pieces that I've collected or cut, and, you know, all the things that you could use to create your masterpiece with. And yeah, because glossy accents dries in a hurry, it's a good glue to use to glue down these embellishments. Plus, it's pretty strong. And I'm going to use some cheap squares from some double stick uh, adhesive to mount my butterfly and a few other things on these tags. And then they will be pretty much done. I'm going to try to put some links down below for you so that, you know, you can research some of this stuff on your own. And I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you'll join our group. We have a lot of fun. And remember, you make a difference to me. So bye for now.